Luffy just made a secret deal with Prince Loki that will drastically change the course of this arc. One moment we're gearing up for a big giant field party, and now we're heading straight into an Ocean's 11 style heist to steal a very important key, all so that Luffy can learn the secret reason why his mentor slash idol, Red Hair Shanks, visited Elbaf. Gotta say, I would not call this an equivalent exchange. Loki is definitely getting more out of this bargain than Luffy is. For one, Loki's smart enough and Luffy's the exact opposite enough to where the deal they agreed on is likely that Loki will only reveal what he knows about Shanks after Luffy frees him from his chains. To which, once he's free, Loki could very easily decide, you know what? No, and go back on his deal, instead attacking Luffy or, just simply walking away. Though, I guess if he tried that, it would end up in a fight anyway, because Luffy would likely try to force him to hold up his end of the bargain. I mean, we already saw how quick to attack Luffy is when Shanks is involved. Which I still think that whole scene was just a little bit weird. I personally don't think that Luffy would jump to attack that quickly just because someone talks smack on Shanks. That's much more his brother Ace's style, and Luffy saw firsthand exactly how that ended up for him. But I guess the reason why Oda decided to give Luffy such a dramatic reaction in that scene is to kind of foreshadow the idea that the two of them will be fighting at some point in the future during this arc, and the reason behind that fight would be Shanks. And now that I think about it, it's likely where this whole thing is leading to. Luffy freeing Loki, Loki going back on his deal, Luffy and Loki fighting, and the fight somehow traveling all the way from the underworld up to the realm of the gods, and this fight ending with a reveal to all the giants, including Loki, that Luffy is the one true sun god. Either that or Loki actually does hold up his end of the deal, and he tells Luffy everything he knows about why Shanks was on the island. But even then, Shanks could have been just on the island to hang out for a bit before heading back on his journey to find the One Piece. I mean, the only place we saw him at was in the bar on the coast of the underworld, and until Kid attacked, he was happily just drinking up a storm with Dory and Bragi. So it's entirely possible that whatever info Loki has on Shanks is something that could be completely useless and not worth betraying the rest of the Giants to find out. Well, at least not to us readers. I have a feeling that to Luffy, any new info on Shanks' journey, no matter how small, is like gold. It's always going to be worth hearing and something he would willingly trade any treasure to find out. So, as long as Loki keeps his end of the bargain, Luffy's going to be walking away happy. That being said though, no matter what Loki does as far as their deal goes, I still feel like this is all leading to one big fight between the two. I mean, that's just where this has to go, right? Loki is clearly being set up as the antagonist of this arc, and since he's claiming to be the sun god, the two have to duke it out for the title eventually. In fact, I can actually see a future where even if Loki does end up keeping his end of the deal, once he finds out from Dory and Bragi that they think that Luffy is Nika, he's more than likely going to get pissed and try to attack him and basically claim the title for himself. Or maybe he even sees Luffy go Gear 5 in person, see that he looks exactly like Nika, and decide, you know what, can't have that, and try to take him out so no one else can think that he is not the true sun god. How we get there isn't important, as long as the end result is Luffy revealing Gear 5 to Loki and the rest of the giants, and them recognizing him as the one true Nika. Like I already said, Dory, Bragi, and the rest of the giant warrior pirates all already see Luffy as the sun god after seeing him go Gear 5 back on Egghead. So they'll be the first on board with naming him Nika. Haruden's already completely devoted to Luffy, so he's not going to take any convincing. And we already see how excited Gerd was over meeting Luffy in this chapter, and that was without even knowing he's a god. Once she finds out, she'll be even more in love with the tiny human. Which, by the way, I feel like how easily Luffy made friends with Gerd and Goldberg in this chapter makes everything the crew went through in the last two chapters kind of pointless. Don't get me wrong, I get it. After their experience with Road being kidnapped, stripped, and forced into his Legoland version of Elbaf, I would be pretty iffy on interacting with giants too, but had Nami just let Luffy call out to the two of them back in 1130, things wouldn't be any different than they are at the end of this chapter. They would still have made it to the giant village and would be reuniting with the other half of their crew. If anything, the only difference would have been Luffy meeting Loki a bit later, maybe even finding out how evil he is from the other giants beforehand, and being warned not to go near him. Which I guess that's why Oda didn't do it that way, because by having them try and avoid the giants at first, it gave Luffy the opportunity to go and meet Loki without any prior knowledge to who he is, so that the two making their deal would make a bit more sense. Though, and I hate to call this out, but I feel like I have to, Luffy going through with the deal makes almost no sense at this point. Had he continued to sneak around and try to avoid the other giants, maybe. But now that he's on good terms with them, he doesn't need Loki to tell him why Shanks was on Elbaf. Any of the other giants can answer that question, and it won't result in him putting the others in danger. I mean, hell, he even heard Dory and Bragi mention Shanks while they were heading towards Elbaf. At any point during the journey, or now that they're being reunited, he could just ask them, hey, how do you know Shanks? And they could tell him we were hanging out with him right before we came to get you. The only reasonable reason I could think of as to why Luffy would continue on with the deal is that Loki may have told him that Shanks came to talk to him personally, so only he has the info that he needs, not the other giants. That's just my personal stance on the whole deal so far. I really don't see a point with Luffy going through with it unless Loki said that he has some kind of secret information that only he has on Shanks and none of the other giants do. Also, it is worth noting that I'm kind of just speculating that Luffy did take the deal based on the flashback he get of him and Loki in the chapter. Still don't know for sure if he actually agreed to free Loki or if he just agreed to keep the fact that the two of them talked a secret. But I say, based on where the plot's most likely going, that the chances of Luffy following through with it, or at least trying to, is at about 99%. Just like there's a 99% chance that the Sunny gets a major upgrade by the end of this arc. Because one of the most surprising things we get from this chapter was the reveal of how the giants travel between the three realms. Turns out they use a cube that seems to be made of glass to create rainbow bridges. As of right now, not exactly sure how it works because Dorian Broggy did not give a good explanation in this chapter, but it does fit the whole Nordic aesthetic because I believe rainbow bridges is actually a part of Aesir mythology. But anyway, going into Elbaf, I thought the most we'd get from Frankie is him getting his hands on some more atom wood or maybe some kind of rare metal that's only available on this island. But now that we know about this rainbow trick, there's no way he doesn't find a way to integrate it into the Sunny. That and also clouds. Those will come up way too often recently not to be used by the Straw Hats at some point. Anyway, we get this amazing double page spread of the Giants Village, as both halves of the crew each arrive in the Sun Realm at the same time. And we get to see the reaction of each member of the crew as they officially make it to Elbaf. Well, everyone except Sanji. He's a little too preoccupied burying himself in Gert's chest, though we shouldn't be surprised at this point, because to him, no matter how breathtaking the sight may be, nothing could be more important than snuggling up next to a giant, beautiful lady. But hands down, the reaction that hit the most was definitely Usopp's. He's been dreaming of the day they would reach Elbaf since chapter 129, and after 1003 chapters, with tears flowing down his face, he's finally done it. And with the amount of excitement and emphasis Oda has put on Usopp these past few chapters since these six woke up on the island, it really makes me think that Oda is going to actually make good on giving Usopp some major development in this arc. But even though it does seem like we're heading in that direction, I can't help but feel like we're in for another Frankie situation, where we all thought that he'd come out of Egghead with some big upgrade or learn something new that develops him as a character, and in the end, we ended up getting nothing. Hopefully Usopp isn't in for the same fate, considering how long we've all been waiting for this to happen, but until proven wrong, I'm going to have some doubts. I gotta say though, out of everyone, I'm looking forward to seeing Usopp's reaction to Luffy helping out Loki the most, because of his strong admiration for the giants. I mean, just look at what happened in the chapter. He got upset at Zoro for hitting Road, who had kidnapped them, by the way, with a tree. I can only imagine how he's going to react when he finds out that Luffy freed a giant that killed the king of giants. It's not going to be on the same level as the disagreement they had back on Water 7. Usopp and Luffy have come too far together for it to ever get that far again, but there's no way he's going to be able to have Luffy's back 100% on this. So I'm looking forward to seeing the emotional drama that comes with this fallout. Not to mention all the chaos that is sure to ensue once Loki gets out and it's revealed who freed him. And it's still not even including whatever happened to Saul, which we still don't have any resolution on in this chapter. My bet's still on him falling from the Sun Realm down to the underworld without any way to get back up. And we still have the mysterious character that we saw all the way back in chapter 1124, who we might have seen at the end of this chapter. Because on the very last page, we see a man walking through a forest on Elbaf while being watched by what looks like a giant grizzly bear. But probably the most interesting part of this chapter is that we ended with a passage from the book Bragmen, written by the adventurer Louis Arnott. Specifically the second half, however, in regards to this mysterious land called Elbaf where everything, if I have to write down just one thing here, then I want you to always keep these words in your heart. Do not linger in this land for long. The fact that Oda decided to add in that passage at the end of this chapter means that above everything we've already seen set up for this arc, something even more sinister is waiting in the winds. A secret about this island that possibly even the centuries-old giants don't know about is about to be revealed, and I am ecstatic for whatever it might be. Even though we're already about 6 chapters in, this is the real start to Elbaf, and now I'm even more excited to see how this arc develops than I ever was before.